Major funding for these broadcasts is made possible by grants from Capital One Bank, New York Community Bank, Eastern Consolidated, M&T Bank, Sterling National Bank, Meridian Capital Group, Customers Bank, Ariel Property Advisors, Dime Community Bank. Additional funding is made possible by grants from AM Trust Title, AVR Realty Company, Avison Young, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Chase Commercial Mortgage, Citizens Bank, CPEX Real Estate Services, Colliers International NYC, Cohen Equities, Collins Building Services, Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handler Real Estate Organization, Handro Properties, Hodges Ward Elliott, Inc., Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Madison Realty Capital, Matone Group, Mercantile Bank, New Banks, Newmark Knight Frank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rockefeller Group, Rosewood Realty Group, SJP Properties, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Meringoff Family Foundation, the Moynihan Organization, Moynihan Capital Partners, and these friends.
On this 999th show, we're going to talk about what has really happened since 2001, when I started my first show. Since 2001, many of these individuals have been with me, including Jeffrey, like on my third show, live from Charlotte's Kosher Restaurant in the Sony building, which is no longer the Sony building. So the world has changed. So the topic of today's discussion really is what's happening, the gentrification or the changes in the five boroughs. My guests include Jeff Levine, who is the chairman and CEO of Levine Builders, Douglaston Development, and Clinton Management. Josh Muss, who is the chairman and CEO of Muss Development. Alan Suna, who is the CEO of Silvercup Properties, Silvercup Studios, and the principal and a partner in Metro Management. And last but not least, the chairman and CEO of Triangle Equities, Lester Petracca. Lester, we were saying before, you have done work in nearly all five boroughs since 2001 when I started the show. You've done work and you've built and owned in four of the properties. What has changed? I mean, you're now into Staten Island, a place where the Musses have been there since before the bridge.
Well, I think first on a macro level, what's changed is we've gone from roughly 8 million people to 8.5 million people. So you have a 500,000 more people in the population. And it's interesting to see, I mean, there's a pretty broad question. If you look at the office market in Manhattan, I think you'll see the value in the period of time you're talking about has gone from $60 billion to $160 billion of ownership.
I'm talking, specifically, you went up to the hub,
okay,
in a market that Jeff used to be in the market years ago when it was Fort Apache, they would call the Bronx over there. The hub has changed. Alan Suna, who, with his brother, the visionaries of Silvercup Studios, recently went to the Bronx to open up a studio over there. Josh Muss built a hotel in Brooklyn. The same thing, in Brighton Beach with the Oceana. Jeff Levine and Alan Suna together went to Harlem in 2001 and built under the Anchor Project of the City of New York, affordable condominiums with retail. This wasn't there. What do you see changing? What has caused the changes?
Well, it's very simple. You know, if you would have told me after 9/11, when I was building one of my first luxury rental projects on 50th Street in Manhattan, that the aftermath of 9/11 would be the resurrection of New York City to the degree to which it happened, I would have said you were crazy. In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, you had a climate of fear. Job exodus seemed just around the corner. But lo and behold, New York City came back extremely well and extremely quickly. The transition of the fire-based economy, which continues, but the addition of the TAMI and the STEM economies brought New York literally hundreds of thousands of new jobs, as well as the 500,000 additional residents that we picked up in that time.
But you know, when you talk about the building on 50th Street off 8th Avenue, which is it's Times Square, but it's a little further off Times Square. Look at what has happened with Times Square, the total turnaround over the years. Now a lot of people don't want to have apartment buildings in Times Square. A lot of people have decided that the office market in Times Square has too many visitors, the neighborhood has changed. Take Harlem. When you and Alan went over there to Harlem, what was it like on 116th Street?
Well, I have to tell you something. We had been building in Harlem through the building blocks of the New York City agency programs, HPD, HDC, both the vacant building program work. One of the first projects I ever did in the Bronx was for Harry Suna, may he rest in peace, Alan's dad. We went up to Brady Avenue in the Bronx, where we, under the participation loan program, under the building blocks of the agencies, started to bring these neighborhoods back. And what happened is these renovated buildings in these economically challenged areas started to bring in population, bring in commerce, bring in activity. And what I've learned about development in emerging areas is that just the very presence of development and building, the construction workers in the morning, the coffee trucks, the security guards, the negative elements are chased away. The drug dealers, the prostitutes, they don't want to be seen or heard. They want to activate in their own world. And the new development cleans up neighborhoods by eliminating those elements.
Let's talk about how you went into the studio business. Okay, this was it was the Silvercup's bakery over there. And originally your dad wanted the property
to locate two of his construction manufacturing companies. And
so let's talk about the television and movie production business. What has happened over the last 17 years?
Over the last 17 years, well, if you shorten it to the last 14 years, that's really where the difference was. There was always work in New York when we opened our studios in 1983. That really continued for 20 years until 2003. But over the time, it started to slide down. New York was less and less of a desired place to be. In 2004, then Governor George Petracca got through a tax credit to induce people to come to New York to film TV shows and movies. And that was a start. And then I forgot which year it was, but you'd have to help me. The first term of Andrew Cuomo, he saw the effectiveness of this tax credit and changed it in whatever it was, 2008 or 10 or whatever it was. And that has been transformative to increasing the amount of business in New York. So what's happened? We expanded in Queens. Now we expanded in the Bronx. We're not the only ones expanding in the Bronx. There's another guy who is a neighbor of ours with a small facility, opening a larger facility in the Bronx further north. People are now even going to Staten Island, presumably. And so there's just a lot more business in New York. And I just touch on this for a second, Mike. The studio business is better, not just because of the tax credit, but it's better because of all of the content that is now being desired by the Amazons, Hulus, and all those folks.
Right, you have all of this.
So the world has turned upside down. But in that regard, the continent, the entire continent, has never been healthier. And the same can be said of New York. Because it's not just New York that's cleaning up areas and stuff like that. It's happening in major cities all over.
Here's a point for Josh, and it'll go with Lester recently. When your dad went to Staten Island, why did he go to Staten Island in 62, 63?
Well, part of it was because he anticipated the coming of the bridge and what that would create. And also, we were always looking for where it was less expensive to develop. To go into Manhattan, you'd have to buy a piece of property for $100,000, $1 million, now 10 million, 100 million. At the time, the properties were much less expensive. We were buying lots for as little as $1,000 a house. And we started building there, and from there we just continued building.
So let's fast forward to you. How do you decide to go to Staten Island 50 years later?
Well, I guess the reason why I went to Staten Island is because of the desire of both the city and the state to develop the North Shore of Staten Island. You have the wheel going up. You have the Staten Island Yankees. You have the Empire Outlet Mall. And we just saw it as an opportunity there at the base of the Staten Island Ferry, believing that it was a great residential market for young people that wanted to stay on the island. I mean, Staten Island historically is a suburban market where we're creating an urban environment.
I mean, the Irby, which opened up a year ago, is doing rather well in Staten Island.
Yeah, some very serious runs,
which people didn't expect. But you've been developing in Staten Island for years, over the last 18 years, but different types of housing, right?
Well, we've been doing primarily seniors, primarily affordable. The bottom line is, what we've learned in the seniors business is that people like to stay in their own communities if they can and if they can afford to. And by building to the aging population, remember the baby boom is now approaching Josh 72 years old. That having been said, that baby boom has needs for senior housing. That being the case,
you're picking on my friend Mr. Muss.
Absolutely, I love Mr. Muss. That being said, the Staten Island community, I think, is very much looking forward to the subsidized, affordable senior housing that we're creating at Seaview off of the Brielle Avenue in Staten Island.
Brighton Beach. How do you think about Brighton Beach, and then how do you decide about the hotel in downtown Brooklyn? There hadn't been a hotel in Brooklyn since the Half Moon Hotel in Coney Island, where the guy got murdered.
Every once in a while, people say, what do you specialize in? Apartment buildings, hotels, retail. And I think our specialty was developing in the boroughs. We would sense a convenient location. While Brighton Beach did not seem like a convenient location, it was on the subway, it was on the water, on the ocean, had a built-in community that needed housing. So that made sense. The fact that nobody had built housing before in 25 years or 50 years in Brooklyn didn't seem to invoke sufficient fear as it should have. The same thing with the hotel. There were no hotels in Brooklyn. It also gave us an opportunity to do something we specialized in building an office building, which was helped and subsidized by the city. But the fact of the matter is that you sit down and you say, well, where is there a need? One of the things that we also recognized is that if you're on public transportation, you have a built-in factor that's going to help.
So you were before the time on transit-oriented developments. Anything that's near a train always.
Our office building in Queens, when we built it, on the subway.
Someone said to me before we started taping, all four of you have your headquarters in Queens. Is there a reason why each one of you has your headquarters in Queens?
I have a reason. We built the building, and it was a great view. And it was near where I lived.
As you know, I grew up in Brooklyn, Queens. I started my business out of my apartment where I shared with my brother in Queens, and then went on to rent space. And now we actually have offices in Manhattan as well.
Manhattan and Queens. You?
We're basically out of the gate. We're a Queens-based business. I'm a Queens boy.
Now, where was Harry Suna's business? Up in the Bronx?
In Queens, and another piece up in the Bronx.
In Leicester?
Both my parents grew up in Queens. I grew up in Manhasset. It's a tremendous commute. And we had a great office building over there we moved into and loved being there.
So let's talk about 17 years ago,
Okay.
Long Island City. I still remember having the Alganians on my show and saying to them, how come you didn't develop here for all these years? They said, we weren't ready.
Correct.
Let's talk about Staten Island. Besides the studio, you've built 2 successful condominium projects
Yeah, in Queens,
in Queens, in Long Island City.
right near our offices. You know, it just happened to work out that way, but it really worked out great that it was worked out that way.
But what took so long for development to take place in Long Island City? As Josh said, great transportation, right on the train, all these lines over there.
It was
Convenient to the city.
My opinion, it was
Yes.
compression from Manhattan, which is, you know, Williamsburg, a little bit different story, but it was compression from Manhattan that started Williamsburg, then Williamsburg took on its own life, but Manhattan became too expensive. And so that's what happens. You know, a balloon, you have more air you blow into it, like Lester was saying, you have more population, and they were higher paying jobs, you know, from TAMI, from STEM, from all these other kinds of things, and people were willing
Jeffrey?
to do
Well,
it.
I think we've seen this movie before. We are living now, up until yesterday with the stock market, through an unprecedented boom in our economy, stemming from the Great Recession, which we haven't talked about, of 2008, 9, pick your years. And the reality is, from that point on, we've had job creation, we've had population growth, and through every recession I've seen before, whether you go back to 86 or the post 9/11-01 recessions, people look for the most affordable opportunity where to live. And as the economy booms, they get priced out of Chelsea or Tribeca or the Upper West Side,
But
whichever was
in
open.
the same manner, we were talking before about the OHM. You built the OHM before there were Hudson Yards. You know, the rezoning had been approved. I mean, you were a pioneer. I mean, literally, you know, a pioneer. You had to have a bus. The world has changed now.
But what I see happening is people will move, whether it be to Hoboken or to Bushwick or to Ridgewood, or people are fantasizing, in my opinion, about the South Bronx going market rate. Yes, if the economy continues to boom and rents in Manhattan go into triple digits for residential apartments, and you see Brooklyn moving from $50 to $60 to $70 as Long Island City, then people will look for the next alternative. But what happens when the boom busts, people look at the rents they're paying in neighborhoods that may be less than desirable and say, well, for just a few dollars more, I can move from Cobble Hill back to Brooklyn Heights, or I can move from Bed-Stuy into North Williamsburg, or I can move from 127th Street down to West Chelsea. So as prices back off,
You know,
people look for the other
You bring
opportunities.
up a lot of neighborhoods, and a couple of them bring thoughts to me. And I had done a show the week before where we were talking, and Steve Siegel said he thinks that maybe Harlem is the next office market. Harlem, they had the opportunity in 2005, 2008 on 125th Street.
The NBA.
The NBA, and they didn't go there. MLB had the opportunity. They didn't go there. You know, Ratner built in central Harlem. All the tenants were governmental tenants, so it was a different
To
market.
be
over
successful, an office market needs to be by transportation.
there. Harlem has transportation.
Not sufficient. Not
And it's
sufficient
not
to
just-
reach out. You're getting people from Brooklyn, from Queens, from Staten Island. They're not going into Harlem. They're going into Manhattan or downtown Brooklyn or even perhaps Long Island City.
It's not just transportation. You need the amenities,
That's exactly
the
right.
lunch
Yes.
places, the after-work bars where people can socialize and do business. And the reason, look, we saw Goldman Sachs run to Jersey in the post-9/11 environment, and I understand they use that building to hang their coats now. Their people wanted to be in New York City where the action is.
I think Jeff touched on a very important point, and that is in Long Island City, there weren't a lot of amenities for that market, and that has slowly built up to the point, I think since 2007, there's 12,000 new apartments in Long Island City. I think the #1 place in the country for growth.
I think
It
the
is,
negative of
growth.
what's taking place is that the retail gentrification or the new stores have not opened up fast enough in Long Island City to take care of the population.
Another thing you have to look at having to do is you want to know why is there growth in all of these areas? Well, all you have to do is look outside of New York City, okay, to a lot of the suburbs and how values there have gone down and people don't want to live there because we've had massive cultural change. You have often 2-income families now It's not just one of the spouses stays home and takes care of the kids. They're both working. They all want to be close to where they work to reduce their commute time. In one of our condos, there was a couple that worked on the east side of Manhattan. They figured out that on the train it was a 6-minute ride back to their home. They could visit their children at lunchtime and then go back.
I'm looking at 4 people who have done developments in the 5 boroughs. One area that you haven't done, with the exception of Leicester, okay, and it's really because you bought a note, is the state of New Jersey.
That's the enemy.
Yeah.
Why haven't you ever gone to New Jersey over all these years? You know, we spoke about Jersey City, we spoke about Hoboken in a different manner. Why are 4 successful developers not in the Garden State?
To be successful, you have to know the marketplace. You have to know the community boards, the legislators, the rules, the building department. When you go out of your comfort zone, you're going to get into trouble.
Well, if I can tell you, I have built in Jersey years ago. I partnered with a fellow named Al Weingarten. I built for sale housing in Jersey. And in my early days, Jersey was, to use the vernacular, a schlep. Going every morning across the bridges to visit a job was very difficult with the congestion. The way my business operates today, I can, of course, have project manager and
Get a
field people.
helicopter.
But the truth of the matter is, I am looking very seriously at Jersey, but the numbers have to work. And right now, you look at all that work that's around Journal Square, Jersey City. You hear about a lot of it, but not a lot of it's going into the ground because they're very challenged economically with the rents you can achieve there.
We just acquired a center in New Jersey, in East Orange, at the Brick Church train station. And we are working with the city, and you need subsidy to make it work. I mean, it's about dollars. And there is a place, by the way, where they've opened their arms. And when we came out of our city council meeting, they said to us, well, why don't you want more? And we are planning as many as 700 units of housing,
As you
200,000
just
square feet of
subsidized.
retail. Not subsidized in the sense that they will assist us with loans and grants in order to facilitate affordable, fair market rental
But
property.
isn't that the way that Mr. Levine and Mr. Suna built in the Bronx and built in Harlem? Subsidy or incentives provided by government has helped stem development throughout the city.
I think one of the issues in New Jersey is commutation. I live in nearby Long Island, and I commute to Forest Hills. It used to take me about 20, 25 minutes. Now it takes me 35, 40 minutes. To commute into Manhattan is almost unthinkable. There are more cars, there are more people, there are more Ubers, there's more bike lanes, so that the premium of being on rapid transportation and to be able to get into Manhattan or into the city centers is higher each year. Once it becomes a commute and people see it's more than an hour, they back off.
I don't want to call Levine a visionary, but when you went...
Why not?
He'd like you to, actually.
Okay, semi-visionary. When you went to Williamsburg, as we were talking before in the green room, I still remember the groundbreaking of Northside Piers. Nobody expected Williamsburg to be such a hit. What do you attribute it to? The age, the millenniums, or?
I will attribute to the fact that if you go back in time, my father grew up in Williamsburg. It was a lower income bedroom community for working class people. It had housing, be it tenement or townhomes. It had on the avenues retail amenities, groceries, bodegas, have you what you will. But when it went from Jewish to Italian to Asian to Hispanic, the neighborhood continued to be a bedroom community. So it had the bones as well as the transportation to make that jump to become a mecca for the millennial generation to have a hip community in close proximity to their employment.
Don't forget the view.
And the view, thank you.
Now, I'm going to relate now to Leicester. For the people who are baby boomers, there was Adventurers Inn. You know?
In Queens?
Harvey's, the diner across the street.
Right.
I didn't know.
So you built a shopping center over there. You know, today the word shopping center has mixed emotion. But Queens, the shopping centers are still, because Queens is still under retailed. Brooklyn is still under retailed, you know, with the Triangle Junction.
Yeah, look, retail's an interesting product at this point because of e-commerce. You know, for every $1 billion of sales of e-commerce, you need 1.2 million square feet of warehousing. So, so within our markets in the boroughs, the retail is still pretty solid, although a lot of tenants are feeling pressure. We have a Babies R Us that just they decided to close. There is not a lack of demand. So location specific, you're good, but retail you're going to see contracting. And by the way, you go back to 9/11. 1% of retail sales was done over the internet. Today, 10% is done. So,
but in a similar manner, years ago when you said industrial buildings in New York City, people poo-pooed it. Today, I know that you're in the middle of taking over a parking lot in Queens. And
yes, we're
trying to make that into industrial.
We're trying to. We're planning on doing a vertical logistics center. We're planning on closing on Thursday, actually, and. That's another thing that has changed, is back industrial was maybe $10 a foot. Today,
on a good day.
Yeah, today we're talking $30 a foot. We're talking about numbers that approach and in some cases exceed. We bought that site actually for retail, and in the middle of it switched gears and went to logistics because we think it makes more sense, and there's a greater demand. It's right there at Kennedy, so. Logistics is on its way.
Like a minute left. Where is the next opportunity? Where's the next place?
I don't know.
I called you a visionary before. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know that it's so much of a place, but I referred earlier to the aging of the baby boom, and that people today are more health conscious and are aging better. And as they approach the late 70s and the 80s, the need for senior living in the form of independent
I concur with you 100% on the senior living homes. I mean, you have two opening up in Manhattan, one on 56th Street in Lexington, one on 92nd Street in 2nd, and they're going to do well. And even in the nursing home, the new model, which is the green type of model, where you have a large room for where everybody can meet and everything else. The world is changing because by 2030, the number of baby boomers are going to be enormous.
But I will disagree with you. I'm not a fan of skilled nursing because skilled nursing is very much dependent on government programs. I'm concerned about the ability of the government to fund that need. The senior citizens who have benefited from the largesse of our country's growth, who have homes and have pensions,
They have
money
capability
to be able to pay for private pay senior living, and I think that's the future.
And they want to live in walkable neighborhoods.
No question. And that's why these two are so well.
Yes.
55 and over, and logistics is what I would say.
So as they would say on the 999, I'd like to thank my friends who've been with me many times over the past 17 years. Jeff Levine, Josh Muss, Alan Suna, Lester Petracca, and I'll see you for the 1,000th show soon.
Thanks, Michael.
They told us we would be 1,000.